Well, hello, hello. As you might imagine, 2025 is the year, and we're looking at the New Year's convoy right now. Now, of all the items that you can acquire in here, you'll notice there is some interesting things that they have in here. Like, now you have a private jet skin for 400 you can get. That's the first one I've ever seen. There's also some other things. A New Year bell gives you troop attack by 1%. They have some emotes. I don't know about you, but that's kind of cool. uh, naturally, right? You know, the cheapest item I see here is fire crystals being at 10. That's a good deal. 20 for 10 is pretty darn good. But naturally, how do you go about getting these? Well, it's a silver shell pack, and you might be thinking, okay, you can get one free pack for 4 days. 5 times 4 is 20. So that means you can only get 20 if you're playing free to play. But you can spend $1 and get 20. So they're giving you a little bit of a enticing motivation, right? Which I know most people that despise mobile games, especially those of you that despise microtransactions. I feel for you because we're looking at somebody that can spend $100 and have a little over 1,000x of what someone can get free to play. So I feel you. But that said, right, there is an angle. There's always an angle. You'll notice that, hey, you make a purchase, you get 5. You kill 10 beasts, you get 5. So there is some stuff here that you can do free to play. God forbid, right? But New Year's prelude and all that joy, yeah, a lot of this is only going to be for 4 days. I will say that for most free-to-play players, right, you're only going to get so much. You're not going to get a ton. You know, in terms of items and everything, it's not bad. Now, of course, I'm always picking up my essence. I'm doing everything I can. And naturally, of course, we have the glowstone mine now. As you may remember, I had told you there's more than one labyrinth. And I know this is controversial, but I'm going to go ahead and say it now. All right? I had been protesting against having more than 3 sets of gear for each hero. I am actually telling you now it makes more sense to have 6 or even 9 sets of gear. The reason being is Labyrinth is going to give you a stupid amount of that hero XP. So where in the past it didn't make as much sense to have, 1, 2, or 3 heroes, have one really good March if you're free to play, now I actually think it might make sense to even have 2 sets or 3 sets. And you should strive to at least try to have an even, round robin approach to that. And the reason why is because now you can no longer depend on one hero. You have to have 3 heroes on these runs. So the likelihood that you're going to get more experience if you have 3 well-rounded heroes compared to just one is now actually a factor. Like, you can no longer depend on, just because you have one hero that's good doesn't mean you have 2 or 3. And that is a big deal in Labyrinth right now. So if you're wanting to actually get somewhere in this, I mean, you can equalize it. I honestly haven't seen a whole lot of benefit to trying to, micromanage. You can try, but I haven't really found it to be a very helpful thing to do. Don't try and micromanage this. You can try, but it doesn't really work as far as I know. Okay? The main thing is knowing that you really have to actually put in the effort. That's really what I think personally you honestly ought to do. My advice within the last year, I can almost throw that advice out the window. It's no longer valid given this update. This update has changed the way I perceive how you should go forward. I really do think it makes that much of a difference. And it's just not the same like it was before, because now you've got so much on the table that you can go out and actually acquire that it makes more sense to really build multiple sets. Now, that said, I know I had some people ask me, wait a minute, why are you using your actual general shards on Bradley when it's a hero in Lucky Will? Why are you doing that? The reason being is actually because, for me, I'm looking at it all right, I can max Bradley out, And once Bradley's maxed out, all the extra shards, I'm gonna basically get a bunch of them during the. You'll basically get a giant chunk of those shards back in the form of points that you can then turn around and use on fire crystals. You can use them in basically getting more mythic shards and what have you. But because these mythic shards, I'm getting 6 a day. Okay, normal free to play. Yeah, I don't think you should probably be doing that. Okay, but in my case, I'm VIP. I'm like the highest VIP level. Okay, so for me, I'm getting 6 a day for free. So getting there ahead of time is not hurting me. Now, if you're free to play or somebody that's mild pay to play, do I advise you do that? No. But for me, it's just a matter of perspective. I'm at a point where I just want the hero maxed out. Because for me, at this current time, I have a Gen 4, not a Gen 5. I need to get to a Gen 6 marksman. And that's 2 to 300% in stats. And that's a big deal when you're messing with your alliance and you're having to be, doing rallies, doing things in the events. I've got about 200% on the table that I'm leaving out, that I've got to catch up on. In order to be competitive in Arena, to be able to be competitive in general, you've got to make up for that 100 and 150% in stats that you're losing. So that reason is really about the only reason that makes any amount of sense to me. And as you can tell, these challenges are kind of iffy at best, right? But going even's probably, in my opinion, so far, I don't see a whole lot of advantage to trying to make a certain combination. I mean, you would think, if you look at the battle reports, like, why did they lose? Why did they win? They're all even, right? It's 30-33. If I was to so like here, I'm winning in one area, losing in another. And that all becomes a question of, if I was to just ever so slightly tweak it. You also see how I'm winning some and losing others. And you look at the battle report and you're like, well, why did you win? What did they change? And it's all about this. Just being a little different, ever so slightly. It's just enough that there's almost kind of a randomness to it. But you only get 3 tries. So if I lose this last try, like this, you'll see that, then that's it. Then I gotta wait 3 or 4 hours and I can't go any further. So that's Glowstone Mine, but of course you can always jump in and do the other cave too. And that's the nice thing. This is nice in the fact that you can really just add up over and over and over, and that's unprecedented. Before, we didn't get this kind of experience, we didn't get these kind of boxes. This event is huge. I mean, it really does make a huge difference on players that have been wanting to play this game free to play. And honestly, take my word for it. This is a ton of loot. I mean, it's really changed the whole way I've played the game now. Because now the emphasis on having a one peer type set, it just doesn't make as much sense anymore. Because you get so much experience now, you can afford to mix 3 sets now. It's not as bad as it used to be. This event really did. I honestly think this update made a huge difference, and it was a net positive for really all players across the board. And honestly, this has made things a lot easier. I mean, it used to be that you had to really think about this, but now it's not anywhere near as bad as it was. And even then, like I said, I could go with something like this. All right, because I know some of you are curious. Well, hold on, why not just do what you say works? And you can do that, and you'll get a little bit farther. Because you don't necessarily need Lancers as much as you do Marksmen. Because really, if you think about it, all you really need to do is kill the infantry line. As soon as you kill the infantry line, you win. So you can rinse repeat through these pretty quickly. I'm not saying, for everybody that's the case, but you could absolutely do it this way. And you'll get that much further along. The only disadvantage is eventually you will hit a point where your infantry is no longer any good, or they'll increase the amount of marksmen they have. When that happens, you'll have to increase the amount of lancers you have, or the amount of infantry you have. One of the two. Yeah, but this is the only thing I tweak, if I'm going to tweak anything at all. and you're trying to get the most amount of stages possible, that's what I would tweak. Just drop the amount of lancers you have, increase the amount of marksmen or infantry, or evenly bring both infantry and marksmen up. Like, that to me makes the most sense. And how you go about it is up to you. I mean, I would say you'll ultimately find that there are different strategies to this, but this is the one that I'm going with, and it works just fine. Like, you can go through and get all the stages that you need to get through without a lot of trouble, but this is my only advice that I would feel like generally is going to ultimately work out for you. And again, you notice that I'm 65 to 86 here. You really start to lose when you're about 20 mil above. Once you get that far, it's not going to work. So you can see, like, even though it's not winning, you'll be tempted to retry over and over, but what you should do at that point is, when you're not winning, equalize, and then try it. And you notice how much weaker that was? And you're like, oh, okay. But then, let's say if I go back to balance, instead of doing 20, 40, 40, what I'll do, bring this down to 10, and then all I'm going to do is bring this up 10. And you might be calling me crazy for doing that, because you can see that still didn't work. So then I go, okay, I can't do it that way. So we can't get away with that. So we're going to bring this down to 10, and we're going to bring this up 10. I always like to try this just on the off chance that it might help. But yeah, at the end of the day, there's only so far you can go until eventually it just doesn't work. And so, like, here, that's where I'm at. But, I mean, even then, right, with the amount of rewards you just get out of Labyrinth alone now, okay, I can now turn around and, you know, I can look at a set of gear that I've had, and I can empower this and upgrade it and go all in if I want to. The only downside, I feel like, to, you know, if you're already low on legendary pieces, and this is, again, the only reason why I emphasized having 3 sets is because you'll be able to get these up to legendary because you'll have the extra leftovers. But now the problem is, okay, sure, you have it, but they've made it so that now the spenders are going to get catered to a little bit more. You know, and so you kind of have to go out of your way to really try and get those extra mythic pieces, which means you really need these lucky hero chests. So here, we're going to go ahead and pop it. Obviously, I didn't get any legendaries, except for the mythic there. So I got 1 mythic out of 55. Yeah, they're a little bit more difficult to acquire. Of course, it looks like I did get a Citadel, which is cool. See what we get here. Ooh, I got 2 more Citadels. Cool, cool. So let's go ahead and go use that real fast. Might as well go add our new building here. We got stuff to build. So we've got 5 Citadels. So we can go ahead and place one down and upgrade it. So we're getting 2%. Looks like we've also got the Sanctum. So we'll go ahead and put that down and upgrade that as well. So we got another 1.5% in troop defense. And these are cool little buildings. But I mean, you know, as you can tell, they're pretty cool. You know, they're neat. But like anything, guys, that is ultimately what I suggest as far as tips go. Now, for those of you out there that are still watching the video and you're new to the game or you just don't know enough, I mean, really, all I can tell you is that in Arena, all right, a lot of people that go into challenges, you want to use 2 infantry, and most of the time you want to use 2 lancers or 2 marksmen. You don't want to change this combination very often. You very rarely ever need to have 1 infantry and 3 marksmen or 3 lancer. It almost always is 2 infantry and then some combination of the 2. And really, about the only thing that you have to tweak is just go into your individual heroes and go into the gear and upgrade the gear. That's it. There's really not a lot more to it than that. As far as, you know, every day, I will stress, you want to make sure you're using your pet skills. And more than anything, you want to go through the research tab. If you're just starting out, you want to go through and do your growth tab. And you want to do your economy tab up until about 4 and then stop. And then you want to work on doing just your battle tree and your growth tree. And that's it. I wouldn't worry about gathering as much because, to be honest with you, it's not that advantageous in the grand scheme of things. After a certain point, you'll find that you'll actually be rather self-sufficient just by sending gatherers every day in the morning and then doing it again at night. You'll be fine. Outside of that, make sure you're saving your gold coin keys, because you can turn around and use those during events. And about the only other rotation, really, is just making sure you upgrade your shelters. When you're starting out, you're going to want to max these out and get them all the way upgraded and build up your sawmill, coal mine. But once you're done with that, I mean, really, that's all there is to the game at that point. It's just doing the little bit of... Now, I did have somebody ask me, what do I have on my barricade? As you might imagine, I am not using the best possible in-slot. Okay? I could be using Hector here. I haven't touched it in a while. And as you might imagine... It is not for the best. It's just purely me being really lazy, okay? But, like, sooner or later, I'll eventually want to swap that over to Bradley. I just haven't gotten around to it. The only reason you ever want to pay any attention to your barricade and how you go about using your barricade is look at purely the heroes and look at more, not just their gear, but if you've upgraded their exclusive, the exclusive is going to add that much more to it, depending on whether that exclusive is going to affect, and when it says increasing defender XYZ. Increasing defender is going to be a very, very key thing. But, I mean, otherwise, really, it's just from a stat point. And again, I stress this, but, like, the only time I ever really say no against, like, a Gen 1 or a Gen 2 is when you go over here and tap this, it'll tell you what the actual expedition stat is. And this, if it's like 200% less, that's 200% you're leaving on the board. I mean, a 10% exclusive is only going to go so far. 200% is still better. So, unless you're just within inches, which very rarely you are, then it makes more sense to actually go for the actual core stat that you get from that. But that's my piece. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Happy New Year. And I'll see you guys next time.